Well, for more now, we can speak to Lara Spirit, co-founder of Our Future, Our Choice, a youth movement seeking to democratically stop Brexit. And Patrick Christys is a reporter at the Brexit-supporting political website, Westmonster. Many thanks indeed to you both for joining us this morning. Lara, if I could firstly start with you. On the poll, 78% of Brits believe that the Prime Minister is doing a bad job in delivering Brexit. What does that say to you?
It definitely says to me that momentum is moving in favour of a people's vote, and it is perhaps the only thing unifying our country right now. Only 10% of people think that Theresa May is doing a good job at negotiating, and I think that people are taking a closer look at the deal that's likely to be on the table, and they're realising that it is not going to be good enough for the country's future. It is not going to be good enough for their children or their grandchildren's future, young people of whom 75% voted to remain, and they're just looking at this and they're knowing that it's not a good deal.
Patrick, is momentum changed?
Well, I disagree with that. I think what the poll actually shows is there's widespread public dissatisfaction with Theresa May. And I say that because, as Lara rightly said, only 10% of people believe that she's doing a good job. But other questions in the poll ask people things like, what do you think Brexit is going to mean for the long-term future of the economy? Or what do you think it might mean for your life in general going forward? And on those, the numbers were much, much closer. So what that tells me is that if there was a positive Brexit-backing Prime Minister, somebody presenting a positive vision of Brexit, someone the country could unite behind, then actually there would be a more positive national attitude towards Brexit. And this should be a wake-up call, I think, to Conservative MPs, especially Brexit-backing Conservative MPs, that the longer Theresa May's premiership goes on, the more likely we are to see people fall out of love with Brexit and potentially end up with a second referendum.
Lara?
I think certainly Patrick is right. People are falling out of love with Brexit, but I think the idea that a more hard Brexiteering government right now would be a good thing and would placate people in the country who know that Brexit is a disaster is completely wrong. I think that if you take a look at this, what it shows is an increasing awareness of the fact that Brexit is a bad idea. It's going to be bad for the country and the country's future, and that no matter who is in government, they are in an impossible position and they are not going to be able to secure the Brexit that people voted for 2 years ago.
Patrick, given that the country is so divided on the issue of Brexit, do you think it's time for a second referendum?
I think a second referendum is not something that Leavers should actually fear, although I do think it's not the best thing for the country. I think the level of public dissatisfaction on the doorstep can't be underestimated, especially in Middle England, with regards to what a second referendum would mean. It would play as another go at democracy, and that wouldn't come across that well. But in terms of a second referendum, I'd like to make the point that the Leave camp would now have to make the point, and could do it very honestly and credibly, and say that a Remain vote would now mean signing up to some kind of EU army. Jean-Claude Juncker said that. It would now mean signing up some kind of United States of Europe and continued immigration in the hundreds of thousands. And as long as that remains the case, I would find it very difficult to see how Remain would win. I also assume it would come out at some point during that referendum that these big Remain groups are lots of them funded by foreign money, which to me smacks of foreign interference.
Patrick, if there was a second referendum, what would the question be? A lot of people would be asking. I mean, should it be a referendum on the Chequers plan, a no-deal scenario, or whether we should stay in the European Union at all?
Well, it's interesting. I'm not actually completely sure exactly how a second referendum would work, because presumably on those points there it would split the Brexit vote if you had an option between the Chequers agreement, a no deal, or to remain. So I'm not sure on the practicalities of it. Personally, I actually feel it's very unlikely that we are going to get a deal. I don't think it's in the EU's interest to give us one, and certainly as far as they are concerned, because their ultimate objective is that Britain remains. And so I think they would see that if they give us no deal at all costs, that may well cause some kind of second referendum that would be a choice between no deal and Remain, and I think they feel, wrongly in my opinion, they feel that would result in Remain.
Lara, should there now be a second referendum, and if so, what would the question be for you?
I think there should now be a people's vote, and I think that on the terms of the question, I think it is ultimately a matter for Parliament to decide. In my personal opinion, I would choose between a binary choice between the Chequers deal and an option to remain, and that is because I think the no deal would be an absolute disaster for this country and too much of a disaster for our elected representatives to countenance.
Patrick?
Yeah, I mean, that's obvious that you would say that. It's because only a small percentage of actual Brexiteers agree with the Chequers deal. And so, in that respect, you're asking people to vote for something, a lot of people, the vast majority of the public, to vote for something between two choices, I think, that they don't agree with. So I can see why you tried that, Lara, but I don't think that's going to work, unfortunately.
Lara?
I think you're misunderstanding preference voting completely. And on your other point, Patrick, about us being some kind of liberal elite group which is funded by big interests, I would say that is completely wrong. We are a crowd-funded organisation. We raise all of our money through crowdfunding. And I would say that it is absolutely absurd, and it's a complete distraction from the bigger point here, which is that Brexiteers will often go to these points when they feel like they're losing. And the fact is that Brexit is going disastrously wrong. This poll shows that, and this poll shows that the public think that there should be a people's vote.
Patrick.
Yeah, I mean, that's not true. You know, George Soros gave quite a lot of money for Best for Britain. Best for Britain chose to give quite a lot of money to Lara's group there. So, yeah, no, that's not a fallacy. And look, when I'm saying that, when Lara's saying that Brexit's going wrong, you know, I'm a Brexiteer, and this is not the type of Brexit that I would have liked. I don't think Theresa May's handling of it has been great. But I tell you what, I don't think people do want is a complete reversal. I don't think there's any way just that people can say, look, Brexit isn't going as well as people would think, so let's just remain. No, that's absolutely not the way that democracy works, I'm afraid.
Lara, Theresa May is on holiday. When she comes back, I mean, what do you expect her to do? What should the next step be? Because for the moment, it looks like the Chequers plan is dead in the water.
Yeah, look, we're all for Theresa May coming back with a deal that the country can get behind. But I think it's increasingly unlikely, if not impossible, that that's going to be the case. And although we would urge her on and we would say, please, you know, do try and secure a good deal for our future, it is looking almost impossible that anyone is going to be able to get behind that. And the recent poll around Chequers shows that, and it shows the great dissatisfaction. It shows that it's incapable of either pleasing Remainers or Leavers, and it shows that there's just an increasing impetus towards a people's vote.
Patrick, a final thought from you?
Yeah, look, I've always said that no deal's better than a bad deal, and I think that it's time that the positive case was put forward for that, being able to go around and make trade deals around the world, keep the 40 billion quid as well that we would no longer have to give to Brussels as a Brexit divorce payment. And I think realistically, no deal is edging more and more closely, and really the Prime Minister should be doing more to prepare for it and to put a positive case across. And if you did put a positive case across, I don't think you'd have as many people calling for a second referendum.
Patrick, Christys, Lara Spirit, thanks to you both.
Thank you.